Coming up on today's show, we break down the upcoming creature feature, Sting. Stay tuned. Welcome to Scary World, where we walk you through the latest and greatest in the world of horror. I am your host, Arturo Padilla.
Hi.
If you're just joining us, this is a spoiler-free show.
I'm not going to spoil the surprise.
Now that we got that out of the way,
We got some rules around here.
there are 5 categories: production, story, ensemble, horror, and legacy. Each category can score up to 2 points.
Showtime.
Per IMDb, the synopsis goes, after raising an unnervingly talented spider in secret,
That'll be our little secret.
12-year-old Charlotte must face the facts about her pet
You stupid pet! Kid ate us for dinner!
and fight for her family's survival
I'm into survival.
when the once charming creature rapidly transforms into a giant, flesh-eating monster.
Oh, what monster could have done this?
Production.
You guys gonna watch me?
This movie was directed by Kea Roach-Turner, who also did the action-packed zombie flicks Wormwood from 2014 and 2021. He also directed Necrotronic, another really fun film back in 2018. He loves blending action and dark comedy and very good horror elements together, and this is no different in the movie Sting. He also brings along his keen eye for good framing and composition. This movie looks good, it looks crisp, it looks polished, just like his previous works as well. Everything looks good, from all the lighting to all the framing to the sound editing. The sound editing plays a major role in this movie as well, especially because we're dealing with a spider here who has many different sizes, and the sound really helps when it's creepy crawling, when you hear it in the ducks and all that stuff. It's very good. It's very impactful. It works very well. This movie also does a great job of blending CG with practical, and we're going to get into that more in the later segments of the show. But I think everything is done very well and executed very well, to the point where the CG and the practical stuff is shot well. It doesn't detract from the images on the screen. It doesn't detract from the ongoing action, and I think that's very commendable. It could have gotten very out of hand, being that we are dealing with a spider who grows in various sizes throughout the movie. But I think the director has a good eye on the action, a good eye on the horror action especially, and I think this is why this movie is a success. And for production, this movie gets a nice big 1. Story.
I want a story.
A story about what?
The script and the story was also written by the director, and as mentioned before, he has a good sense of horror, of action, of dialogue, and of comedic moments and comedic beats, which I think he hits successful here in this script. The story was simple, it was concise, it was pretty straightforward. The pacing was very good. This movie goes about 90 minutes or so, and it kind of flies by. You kind of get into it immediately, the way everything is structured. And the one important thing too that I thought was a success, that it didn't get bogged down by the exposition of the antagonist. Yes, we see it's a spider, but it doesn't go into the very background of that spider and the origins of that, which I think is very smart, because it could have really derailed the story from its goal. There was a lull in the second act. It did feel a little slow. I do wish they injected some more spider action into there. There is plenty of spider action throughout the story, in the latter part, as well as in the beginning when everything is introduced. The middle gets a little bit slow because of development and a little bit of exposition with the characters. But I think if they had injected a little bit more spider action and horror there, this would have been a successful second act. It would have probably gotten the full points here. As mentioned, there is good comedic beats in this story. Frank the Exterminator, played by Jermaine Fowler, I think does a good job of livening up the scenes, and it's pretty darn funny, actually. Like LOL funny. At first it might seem a little over the top, but I think it works very well with the character and with the atmosphere of the story. It just clicks. The third act was good as well, but I feel that it needed a little bit more impact at the end there to really hit it home. It did end well. I do wish they had done a bit more in that third act. Maybe turned it up a little bit more, a couple of notches there. Probably at an 8, a 7 and 8, maybe turning it up to a 9 would have really been more impactful and effective at the end of the story. And for story, this movie gets another solid 1. Ensemble.
Oh, God.
Here we go.
This movie had a good cast. It had a good set of characters as well for the cast to portray. I think each cast member portrayed their character well. They executed their personalities pretty well. The characters are simple, but they do develop quite well throughout the story. They have these little arcs that do get closed out as the story concludes, which I think is very important, being that the characters are simple. They're simple and they're very little. The story is very self-contained to this one apartment building where you have about maybe 7 to 8 characters that you deal with. The director is the writer, as I mentioned in the previous section, did a good job of making sure these characters felt whole and didn't get overly complicated while feeling whole as well. I think the characters were a success and really helped this story focus on what was really important, and that was the spider and what that spider was capable of and what that spider brought to the table and how it helped develop Charlotte and her character and how she reacts towards her parents and towards her neighbors. So I think it was a very good job to make sure these characters were nice and simple. That way the story would just flow and not get too complicated with familial drama or very heavy family emotions. And for ensemble, this movie scores another solid 1. Horror.
I thought it was kind of scary.
There was some awesome use of practical blood and gore in this flick. The kills looked great. That's right, folks, kills. There are several kills in this movie and they all look very good. They are heavily practical. They are not afraid to look away from the camera, and this is a trait of this director. If you guys know of the movies Wormwood, he is not afraid of the practical effects. He's not afraid of really getting into the action and showing you what all this stuff looks like. And this is no different. There's a couple of scenes here that are just very gnarly and very impactful and really elevate this movie. Because as I mentioned in a couple segments ago, the story does kind of have a lull there in the second act. But when the action does come, it definitely helps continue driving this story forward, which is super important. The spider action as well, and the spider grossness was very well executed. I hate spiders, and this thing was very cringy. As I mentioned before, there is CG used in tandem with the practical effects here, and it does look good. It does not detract from any of the kills, any of the scenes. Spider itself starts off as CG because of the little spider motion and stuff like that, which, you know, it's fine. It looks good. And as it grows, you get practical stuff mixed into it, and it looks very good. I think that's the highlight of this movie, and I wish they had a lot more of it, honestly, because they did so well with it. And for horror, this movie gets a solid 2. Legacy.
What do you think?
This movie was fun. I really enjoyed the overall package. All the elements added together really made this a success. You had a creepy giant alien spider causing havoc in an apartment building, a solid cast of characters accompanied by a good script, and lastly, you get some really gnarly horror sequences that elevate the entire production. I think this was overall a successful film, a successful production. I do wish they amplified the horror in the middle of the movie when it does drag a tiny bit. And if they did that, this thing would have been a complete success. With that being said, it's still a success. This movie is very watchable. I recommend watching this movie when it drops in theaters. It's a fun watch, a good popcorn flick. It's nice and simple. It has its funny moments in it. You're in and out of the theater, and it's a very satisfying watch. Good ending to it as well, especially for a director who's used to doing zombie stuff and very, very crazy out of the box stuff. He self-contained himself here. Yes, it's a crazy monster spider, but the story is in one location, and it also takes place in New York, which is different for him. All his stories usually take place either in Australia or New Zealand or one of those locations out there. This is his first time actually writing a story that's here in the States, and I think it's very successful. and he does a very good job of this. I can't wait to see what else he does. And for Legacy, this movie gets a very solid 1. To tally it up, Sting received a 1 for production, 1 for story, 1 for ensemble, 2 for horror, and a 1 for Legacy, bringing its score to 6. 6 out of 10 ain't bad, folks. This was a fun movie, a surprisingly fun movie. I was fortunate enough to catch one of those unseen movie releases that they have these days on Mondays, and I had no clue what I was walking into. When this started, I was like, oh, this is that Sting movie, and did not know what to expect, and I was pleasantly surprised. I had fun with it. I laughed. I was shocked at some of the kills. The gore is awesome. Looks gnarly. It's well done. The story is nice and simple. The characters are nice and simple. The spider is the star of this show, and I wish there was a little bit more of it to really hammer the point home here of this monster spider, but it was fun. The expectations that I had, which are very done, this was a good movie. I recommend this movie when it comes out in theaters. Go watch Sting when it drops April 12th.
Can you tell me what time it is?
And that's a wrap, folks. Thank you for watching Scary World. Don't forget to drop a comment down below and press a thumbs up on the video. Most importantly, do not forget to subscribe to the YouTube channel. Tell all your friends, your family, and their pets to come along to YouTube. Subscribe to CorpseFeed. We have spoiler-free horror movie reviews for you guys, dropping Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. And don't forget to check out the official CorpseFeed podcast, dropping every Tuesday anywhere you get your streams. That is the one, the only, The Morgue. Go catch that, go subscribe, go rate, go share that. Don't forget to check us out on all the social streams. We are there, folks. We will see you on Wednesday for another episode. And remember, it's a scary world out there, but we are here to walk you through it.
Just wanted to say goodbye.